Righto. So, I suppose it's been a while since I've done one of these, especially on Facebook. And, yeah, I just haven't really been in a space where I really felt like complaining about anything, to be honest. But I saw a video. I saw a very interesting video that spoke about, it was Del Bigtree, and he said the unjabbed will be vindicated. And this reporter from Australia wrote this really profound piece on the fact that, because of the people who chose not to just bend the knee as such to peer group pressure, to the bullying from the government, to, coercion from their workplace, those who didn't choose to bend the knee, what they actually did from a scientific standpoint, right? They allowed there to be a control group. And this is what Del Bigtree actually read of this lady who wrote the article, right? I'll put the link in my Facebook. So basically, she said that the unjabbed will be vindicated. Now, you get all these jabbed people complain about the fact that, we were such, we just didn't do things right and we should have followed all the rules and, we were selfish and we were this and we were that and we just copped it, right? Left, right and center, we just copped it. And I'm thinking, but what this lady wrote in the article was correct, that we were the control. And as with any scientific process, they have the adulterated version where it's been, where they've actually done the changes, and the unadulterated version where they've left everything exactly the way it should be, and that's the control. So all these people that are screaming about science and screaming about the fact that, people should have been, following the rules and people should have been doing this and you people are selfish. Well, you know what you did? What we did by being free thinkers, by choosing to live within our own fucking choice, what we do with our lives, we actually created, over this 2 years, we allowed for a section of the people to have a result where they were controlled, where they where they didn't take the jab. They didn't wear masks. They didn't social distance. They didn't follow any rules, right? There was a section of the world that actually responded as a control group. Now, why do you think the governments would find that so concerning? Well, if their so-called solution didn't live up to its name, right? And you had a control group there, you had something, a comparison group, then obviously that was going to be, a moment, that was going to be something of concern, considering if you know full well that that fucking thing that you've gone and put into everyone doesn't fucking work. And they screwed themselves because of people's resilience, because of people decided, no, screw you, we're going to be individuals, we're going to make our own choices, we're going to be fucking adults, and we're going to have bodily autonomy, whether you're going to let us to or not. We resulted in there being a control. So let me ask you a question. All these people that didn't follow the rules, didn't wear masks, didn't social distance, went to countless protests, we should have been dropping like flies. Not one or two, like, every once within 1,000 people you had one affected. We should have been an absolute catastrophe. And the only ones that should have had felt some type of salvation and safety were the ones who would have followed all of the directions. But that's not what happened. We weren't the ones who suffered, mate. We weren't the ones who actually caused all the problems in terms of filled the hospitals up. We weren't the ones that were getting tested left, right and center. We weren't the ones who were putting a burden on the health system. It was all of these people that believed that they were going to be given a solution that was going to give them their lives back. So what essentially happened is you got a control. A control group was formed. Now you can actually look at a living, breathing population and go, those people over there didn't comply, didn't do anything. How come they all didn't die? How come all these people, 500,000 or whatever the number was, 350,000 at least attended the Melbourne protest? How come a large percentage of these people didn't get seriously sick and die? How come all these people that weren't wearing masks and social distancing, why didn't they all drop like flies? How come all these people who decided to just stay away from all of these so-called solutions and chose to just believe they had an immune system and they were going to be safe, how come these people didn't drop like flies by the fucking thousands? From a scientific standpoint, you have a control group now where nothing was done to them, and you have the other group. And now you can actually see who's faring a lot worse than the other group. And you can see where they started lying out of their teeth when they stopped saying on these news reports. In the very beginning, they were saying, this is how many were jabbed, this is how many were unjabbed in hospital. But then something happened to these people's balls who were talking about how many people were actually in hospital, who were given the solution and who weren't. And they stopped mentioning how many people were jabbed in hospital. Why? Because now that information didn't serve you and it started to raise questions, even amongst the normies who are out there who believed and sat on your every single word like it was gospel. Now all of a sudden it didn't make any sense. And now you had to start coming out with new reports. 75, 80% of the people in hospital are jabbed, but that's not something to be concerned about. And then you needed more explanations and more excuses and more lies and more fabrication. But the beauty of this whole situation right now is there is a control group. Now, you can fucking hate the unjabbed as much as you want. You can be a virtual signaling asshole as much as you want, right? And say, well, I did the right thing. I thought of I did it for the greater good, and feed yourself whatever bullshit you need to sleep at night. But go and have a look. How many thousands of millions of people protested all around Australia, congregated en masse in group after group after group. Did you see droves of people dying? Did you see droves of people rocking up to the hospital? Did you see them? No, because the news was just saying, oh, we've had this many COVID hospitalizations. And then in the very beginning we said, oh, well, a COVID hospitalization doesn't exactly mean that they had COVID. What it means is they tested positive within 28 days before going to hospital, or, within that time, and they were counted as a hospitalization by the invisible boogeyman, right? They were counted. And we said this on social media, and people go, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. That's not true. And then not 6 months later, because the news now and our politicians and all these fork-tongued big pharma whores needed to come up with a cover story, because people are starting to ask the question, why are there so many jabbed in hospital? So now they turned around, took the same information that they called us conspiracy theorists for and said, oh, actually the reason why so many people are in hospital is because so many people are sick who are jabbed in hospital is because the way we consider someone a COVID hospitalization is if they tested positive within 28 days and then within that 28-day period, they also were admitted into hospital. That is seen and counted as a COVID hospitalization. Then all of a sudden, what we were actually telling people, where people were calling us nuts, all of a sudden now this is gospel. And this is something that should be, we should be taking this information now and be using it as a security blanket, because people are starting to, question even the most conservative of folk. Why the fuck are there so many jabbed people in hospital with COVID? Sick in hospital. Why? This was the question that was being asked all around the country. So, to all of you people out there who can't stand the fact that people didn't get jabbed, and you say they weren't, they didn't take it for the team or whatever else, understand that we weren't allowed to work. We were outcasted by society. We were treated like fucking lepers. We were discriminated against. We'd go to go to the doctor's surgery and they tell us to sit outside in the freezing cold. Why? Because you're not jabbed. Even though the jab didn't stop a transmission of the disease anyway, which would be the only way that would be part of the equation that would affect anyone within the waiting room. Let's not bring fucking common sense into the whole equation. We were made to sit outside like fucking lepers, mate. Made to sit outside. Right? We were made to be treated like outcasts. The government openly supported discrimination, openly supported people attacking other people because of their choices, calling us morons and muppets and all of these other things, right? Just because people decided to make an educated decision because of their own bodily autonomy, because it's their fucking choice, because that's the body they were born with. And if they'd like to make that option, it should always remain their choice, right? These same people. This is what we went through, right? But what came out of all of it? You've got a control group now. So to all of you folk out there who say you should trust the science, well, you should also start looking at this through a scientific standpoint and go, okay, we were the ones who received the medication. Those people over there are the ones who didn't. They're the control. We should really start looking at these people right now. We should really start taking notice of how these people were affected. Those people over there, they didn't wear masks. They didn't social distance. Yes, I can't stand them because they were at protests and whatever else. But you know what? They are really a control group. They didn't follow any of these directions. Yet, look at them. They're unscathed. This is what they'd be saying. I would have worn a mask. I would have social distanced. I would have got tested. This is what you should be asking yourself. Did you do all those things? And were you affected? And then have a look at these other people who didn't follow any of the advice. Didn't follow any of it. Just followed what was in their hearts. And have a look how many of them were seriously affected. Because now you have a control group and you have the affected group. And if you're going to respect the process from a scientific standpoint, then you better respect the fact that there are people out there that chose to remain outside of the parameters of this worldwide experiment and say, yeah, I couldn't stand these people, but I should see just how affected these people were, because I may have 3 or 4 family members that were seriously affected by this. These people weren't, and they didn't do anything. As much as I can't stand them, I still need to try and process, why didn't anything happen to these people? In such a large, within such a large scale of people, why didn't anything transpire within these people that was of a serious nature? That's all I got to say, mate. Right? This is what I thought I'd do a live about, because I believe it's something that needed to be spoken about. And yeah, so this lady from you got to look at, I'll put the link in my video. It says, not in my video, on my Facebook page. I'll put the link to Del Bigtree, who reads the letter from this lady. And she's obviously a writer or a journalist from Australia. And she says, the unjabbed will be vindicated because we were the ones who set the benchmark of what happens when we didn't take all of that. And now we've got the two sides and we can compare. The way God made you, how did you fare against what happened? And the adulterated, how did they fare against what happened? And I'm going to call you, all of these ones who went and took part in it, you were adulterated, mate. You were absolutely adulterated in terms of the way you were treated. There was no informed consent. They didn't even know the friggin' ingredients in that friggin' thing when they were giving it to people. They didn't even have a proper ingredients list at that stage. So how could you say there was informed consent in terms of what you were doing and you were making a fully informed decision when the actual dangers of what was associated with that were being suppressed? Anyway, that's all I've got to say, man. Share it. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe it might get through to people. I honestly don't know. But at this stage, you can say that now there is a control and there is those who took part. And we can look at both sides and now we can truly make our decision of who fared best in terms of, with all the warnings, with all of the, you're going to be in so much danger, with all of that. And who fought tooth and nail to maintain their bodily autonomy, those people, that it wasn't friggin' easy to do, right? Now at least we have two sides to look at and we can see just how bad it is on one and just how bad it is on the other. All right. See you later.